So by now you know about the tragedy unfolding in Afghanistan. The country has fallen to the Taliban, despite assurances from the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and President Biden that this could never again happen. Now, this exit from Afghanistan, which was originally planned for May 1st, but then moved by the Biden administration to the anniversary of 9/11 for some reason, this exit would not be another Saigon, this administration told us. They promised us this. Well, of course, it's clear now what's transpired in Afghanistan is far worse than either Saigon or Benghazi. The collapse of the Afghan government was so fast, it took just a few days, that thousands of allies, American diplomats, journalists, passport-carrying citizens are trapped inside the country with no way out. To be clear, that situation is still unfolding now as we speak. President Biden has ordered 5,000 troops, 6,000 total, with the addition of 1,000 paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division, to go back into Afghanistan to help expedite the evacuation at the Hamid Karzai International Airport there in Kabul. But the Bagram Airport, remember, they closed that, and then the Kabul Air Force, the Kabul airfield, that was kind of taken over as well. So they're securing that airfield, although the Taliban control the perimeter. And it's not clear that there's even actually a place from which to launch any kind of operation to evacuate anybody. Now, American citizens even received a note earlier today advising them to make their way to the Hamid Karzai International Airport, that's the one in Kabul, for evacuation. But at the bottom of that note, it said, and I quote, "Please be advised that the United States government cannot guarantee your security as you make this trip," end quote. The United States cannot guarantee the safety of its own passport-holding citizens. Again, just to be clear how total and complete the takeover of Afghanistan is, the Taliban have already renamed the country. It's the newish name. This was the original before they lost power back in 2001, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Now, reports of the Taliban demanding the daughters of families for the Taliban fighters as their jihadi brides, those are already emerging. Some video too, as are reports and video of executions. Now, again, it's a tragedy. It's a human tragedy that is still too early to even calculate or begin to at the moment. And it could have, and it should have been avoided. This is what I mean when I say that Biden is absolutely passing the buck. He wants to blame the Doha Agreement, but he wasn't bound by it. He wants to blame the Afghan army, but he could have lent them American air support or continued it. And so here's the next card the Biden administration wants to play to try to downplay this debacle. I've seen this media spin. It's the Taliban. It's the kinder, gentler Taliban. They're reasonable. Just grab a cappuccino and sit down and talk to the Taliban about their responsibilities to treat women and people in general with dignity and respect their human rights. They'll listen. The Taliban is just misunderstood after all, which is why you get foolish demands of the Taliban government. Like this. This is from Ned Price. He is the national security advisor in the Biden administration. Listen to this pencil neck.
Additionally, the UN Security Council issued a joint press statement earlier today calling for a new government that is united, inclusive, and representative, including with the full and meaningful participation of women.
See, if they could just stop the rapings and beheadings just for a little bit and make an inclusive government, if you guys could, and the Taliban could just get a little woke, that'd be great. Thanks. See, this is what you do when all you can try to do is absolve yourself from this presidency-ending disaster. You downplay the severity of your catastrophe. Here's the reality on the ground in Afghanistan. The Taliban are detaining people in the street. Take a look at this. Unbelievable. Now, these people that were there beating this person on the street, apparently they were screaming in Pashtun that this individual had assisted the United States, and so he was being penalized for it. And yes, that was a rocket launcher pointed at the civilians. Talk about inclusion and women's rights, right? That's a joke. Yeah, this is a way to distract from the horrific reality of what's going to happen in women in Afghanistan next. Take a look at this video. Brave young Afghan girl who explains exactly how the Taliban treats women.
من 23 سالمه. مطمئناً اگر طالبان کسی رو مثل من، زنی رو مثل من ببینن، به نکاح خودشون در میارن، به تجاوز، نکاح تجاوزی اسلامی، کاری که توی قرآنشون نوشته شده و ما رو غنیمت جنگی میدونن و من الان احتمالاً در حال استراحت بودم برای سرویس دهی در شب.
Earlier, the Taliban in a press conference says women can have rights, just, within the context of Sharia, so no rights. So people can stop with this inclusion and women's rights talk, like the Taliban is some kind of progressive school administration dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's all an attempt to make what's happening seem less horrific than it is. And if it's passing the buck rather than owning the reality situation, that's what this is, and that's what Biden is doing about Afghanistan. Since the country fell to the Taliban, Joe Biden has not spoken to another world leader. This sends such a dangerous message to the world, and that message is that America is apparently lacking any kind of organization, confidence, or foresight. No resolve, making terrible miscalculations, misreading enemies, not listening to wise counsel, and leaving behind Americans. Is that a new thing for America? And betraying our allies. And this message is picked up and exploited by our enemies. I want to show you this because it reaffirms who our enemies are. For all the cozying up with China our elite do, what do you think China's doing now? How is China helping us? They're mocking and threatening Taiwan. Watch this, or look at this rather. This is on Twitter. China's not pitching in. They're not sending in help. They're not taking any refugees. There's the tweet. They aren't condemning the Taliban. Look at this. They're actually threatening about Taiwan right now. There was a series of tweets. Global Times is an official mouthpiece. That's why it has China's state-affiliated media there on the screen and on the tweet. It's because it's run by Beijing, the CCP in Beijing. Yeah, they're expressing support for the Taliban because they help partially fund the Taliban. And they're jeering and mocking what the United States is doing. The Global Times, China's state-run media outlet. Look at this one. They say, quote, "The drastic change in Afghanistan teaches the world a lesson. If the U.S. can't even secure a victory in a rivalry with small countries, how much better could it do in a major power game with China?" Now, I point this out because when you hear companies like Nike or even Blizzard Entertainment, which I can't buy any Call of Duty stuff anymore because of Tencent and CCP's involvement in that, when you watch MLB or anybody else kowtow to the CCP, just know the CCP wishes for our destruction and they're happy to take pictures with the Taliban while they do it. This is who our American corporations are aligning with, by the way. But the real story here is that President Biden, this is a disaster. This is one of the most shameful things that's happened in modern history. Maybe in history, but definitely the one in modern history. There's no passing the buck. There's no changing the story. Notice another thing that we're going to keep an eye on. Vice President Kamala Harris is completely missing in action. She is the most unpopular vice president in 15 years, according to numerous polls. She doesn't want 1 ounce of this mess, making her numbers go even lower. Remember, she had to have a whole meeting up in the Hamptons with a bunch of other Democrat women because they were trying to figure out how to rescue her from her super, super high unfavorability rating. And it's like, when you turn the lights on, the cockroaches go scrambling for cover. That's what always happens. I see so many people running from this disaster, this debacle, not even coming up for air. That's what's happening with this administration. And the president has nowhere to hide. He can't stay at Camp David forever. And by the way, why did he go back to Camp David? Jen Psaki in a press conference today couldn't even give an exact time when the president was going to be back at the White House tomorrow. It's literally a 90-minute drive from the White House or a 30-minute helicopter flight. No, right now we're supposed to trust the Taliban. We're at the mercy. This is what the Biden administration has been doing, putting us at the mercy of the Taliban and with a situation that's completely out of the United States' control. So much for Biden's glorified foreign policy expertise. And this is what that diverse cabinet that President Biden put together has yielded: a foreign policy disaster going to haunt America for decades and killed military recruitment for a long time, at least a generation. It's true, after 20 years, there wasn't a good way to end this war, but there were better ways to do it than how Joe Biden did it. He chose the bad way to pull out of Afghanistan and did so in a spectacular, disastrous fashion. And now, whether he likes it or not, anything that happens next is on his hands. And it's on all of the hands of the people who decided to co-sign that administration because they chose this over mean tweets.